This is the Get Geekish Podcast.
Ever felt a spark of excitement when talking about your favorite things? That's the feeling we celebrate on Get Geekish. Here, there's no gatekeeping, just a community celebrating the unique things that make us, well, us. Now, here's your hosts, Derek and Beano.
Hey, welcome back. Get geekishites? Get geekishins? We should have a term for that, right? Anyway.
The command of the English language is unparalleled in this podcast.
Oh, man. Starting off great. I'm Derek. That's Beano over there. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, we're talking about ducks this week, you know? I'm just going to throw it out there. We're just talking about ducks. Get excited.
Jumping right in. Not mallards, no, not the Mighty Ducks, though that would be a good podcast to talk about the not the hockey team, but the movie that spawned a hockey team. No, we're talking about the infamous Howard the Duck, right?
Howard
He's infamous.
the Duck. Howard T. Duck, I guess. Might know him better as.
So, what was your first introduction to him? Because my first introduction was the 1980-something movie.
1986.
Ugh, it seems so long ago.
That was my first. I believe I saw that on USA Up All Night when I was a kid, and I think that was my introduction to Howard the Duck.
A weird character, right? To say the least. They've tried to make him work in film, especially recently where he's been in cameos in Guardians of the Galaxy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very into Guardians. He was there.
So what are your thoughts on Howard the Duck? How does he make you feel?
I always thought Howard was, I didn't know the details that went into Howard the Duck. I thought it was probably just some 70s or 80s writer that just, threw a long shot out of nowhere, like, hey, let's make a duck. And it was like, okay, yeah, let's make a duck. And they just went with it. Because the movie, he was just a crass, crude, it was a Meet the Feebles-esque. Let's take something like a Muppet. Muppets and puppets are super popular, so we're going to take something and make it just a little deviant, little not parent or not kid friendly, just amp it up a little bit. But then after reading about more of the comics and where Howard the Duck came from, I don't know what to think of Howard the Duck anymore.
First of all, you're going to always try to throw in Meet the Feebles whenever you can.
I sure am.
It's just
Peter Jackson classic.
But secondly, you're sitting there and you say, he's crass, rude, and everything like that. We were both kids when we watched Howard the Duck. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was weird, but I enjoyed it. I haven't watched it since I was a kid, so I don't know.
Yeah, something tells me it's not going to hold up quite as well as it did when I was, 12. But
yeah, I know. If you look at it now from an outside context, you're like, that's a weird movie. Very, very weird. Anyway, let's dive into the history of Howard the Duck here, because the reason we're talking about him is because there was a heist that involved Howard the Duck. I found out about this through a coworker. He was like, "Did you ever hear about the heist of Howard the Duck?" I was like, "What?" And just kind of hearing the brief story, and then he sent a video that you and I both watched. This is one that I feel like this would be a great Howard the Duck movie than the actual Howard the Duck movie. Like maybe some behind the scenes comic book, because we know growing up that there's been thievery, if you want to call it that, in the comic book world, with a lot of similarities between Deathstroke and Deadpool, Mr. Fantastic and
Plastic Man,
Thanos
and Deathstroke, The Flash and Quicksilver,
Hawkeye and Green Arrow. There's
Black Cat and Black Cat.
Yeah, some of it's not subtle at all. You'll read comics and you're like, well, this kind of looks like that Marvel counterpart. And then you read Marvel, you're like, this looks like the DC. And then there's always, we've kind of talked about this before, where there's always like, they used to work together and then they kind of shared ideas. Well, Howard the Duck was originally Marvel. And when was he created in I had this up, but I don't have it up anymore. 1980 something, maybe before that.
Early 80s sounds about right. I remember reading that number somewhere along my researching after you sent me the duck video, the duck heist video. We'll put that link in the blog as well. So if you want to find the Duck Heist video that kind of spawned this whole conversation, you can watch too. It's a pretty interesting little take, and the guy goes into a lot of details for, was it 7 minutes, 12 minutes long?
Yes, I was going to say 7-minute video.
That video, you learn more about Howard the Duck and everything involving Howard the Duck than I think most people probably do in their entire life.
Right. So Howard the Duck was created. It was an alternate reality from us, but it's like our world, and it's called Duck World, where ducks have evolved, not humans, and then, the antics kind of went from there. Marvel had the creator, and forgive me, I don't have his name up. So you're Googling it. Great.
I got you covered.
Thank you. They hired him, and, he created things. And then they're like, we want to do this. And then they kind of started doing this arcing story, and they're like, okay, we're done with you. And they fired him, and they had the rights to Howard, not the creator. Which is kind of messed up, right? I mean, I'm sure that there's a whole litigation we could get into with content creators for Marvel and the rights, right?
Yeah, I mean, and especially with those things changing hands, like there was the creator versus the artist versus the story writers versus the company that owns it versus the publishers, and then the publishers get bought by other publishers. I mean, Disney now owns everything, and the fact that Disney owns Howard the Duck now is really funny with the lawsuits that Disney put up against Howard the Duck when he was first released. Did you read about those at all?
I didn't. What? Okay, let's pause our heist story.
When Howard the Duck was first getting put out there, Disney was actually threatening lawsuits because they said he resembled Donald Duck too much. And they don't want people to get confused, especially because at that time Disney wanted nothing to do with anything that wasn't family friendly, and Howard the Duck was the exact opposite of family friendly. So they were trying to say that I believe the lawsuit, somebody can fact check me on this, was that your duck has to always wear pants to differentiate from Donald Duck to make sure people know the difference and don't confuse them.
I don't think I would ever confuse Howard for Donald, especially since Howard can actually talk.
Well, you say that, but how many times do you go to like a Comic-Con and people see somebody dressed up as a character, and so it's like, oh, it's a Superman costume, huh? You're like, this has nothing to do with Superman. What are you okay, whatever. You think it's a superhero, good enough.
fair point. Case in point, when I wear my X-Force Deadpool. Yep, you're right. Okay, fair point.
Yeah,
fair point.
We gotta remember that we accidentally gatekeep sometimes.
Yeah. Fair point. Okay. That's interesting. I mean,
and for you creators, look it up there for the nerds, book nerds out there. The Howard the Duck character was created by Steve Gerber, who based it off of one of his college friends, and the artist was Val Merrick, and his very first appearance was Adventure into Fear, number 19 from 1973.
Okay, I thought he started in the early 80s, but we're talking early 70s.
The movie came 86, but I mean, the 70s has something about ducks. Disco Duck, Donald Duck, the 70s, and ducks, there was something going on. Something going on a lot there.
Something foul?
Something afoul, yes, quite.
So, anyway, fast forward. He creates Howard, does the whole little jaunt with Marvel. Marvel's like, thanks, fires him. And this is we're doing the Cliff Notes version for you. Mm-hmm. They fire him. They have the rights to Marvel. He's like, but that's my character. They're like, so sad. So he goes to Image Comics and creates another duck, the Destroyer. And that's so funny to me. Like, this guy just has ducks on the brain. Like, okay. But anyway, so he's working for them, and somehow the talk brings up where Marvel's like, hey, we want to do a crossover with Spider-Man and Howard the Duck, and we want you to be a part of it. And he's like, no, because he wants to do a crossover with Image, And I just forgot the Green Serpent, who's like a detective crossover that they want to do with him. This is where the video would come in handy because I don't remember his name.
But figure it out.
Yeah, we got it. This is the epitome of Get Geekish, by the way. This is where we like want to be geeky about stuff, but it's also like, where's the time?
We watched a video and read a couple articles and we're going to talk about it, but we didn't have 35 hours to plot and plan and send interns out to give us a regurgitated synopsis of everything that's on the internet. So,
right. So anyway, he wants to do a crossover with Image, and one of his friends was like, no, you should do the Marvel one too. And here's why, because if you do that Marvel one, then we can do a huge crossover between Marvel and Image, which that's a huge thing, especially back in the day, right? The kind of 2 comic book.
Oh, Savage Dragon. There we go. There's.
Thank you. Thank you. I was like, I could see him, Savage Dragon. So they wanted to do a crossover. So Marvel agreed. Out of all the things they agreed, yeah, let's do this, and we can do a crossover with Savage Dragon and everything like that, which is just wild. So they start putting in the works, and then this is where they start bringing in weird characters to kind of make this work, because the creator is like, I want my duck back, right?
I want my duck back.
Yeah. I could just see it like a Liam Neeson type of thing, like, you took what's mine, I want it back. I know where you are, that thing. So anyway, they start bringing in Ringmaster, who can hypnotize people on a hat, and then Melf, who is an elf with a gun, which, man, some comic book B villains are just wild. Or C villains at that point. So the comic goes, Melf kills the Ringmaster because he wants to take his hat to hypnotize people. He doesn't get the hat. The hat's supposed to be shipped off to the police station, but ends up getting rerouted to Savage Dragon in Chicago for whatever reason. Melf's like, yo, we need to meet at a warehouse. This is the place. And also that's where the circus is that Ringmaster shot, and Spider-Man's going to investigate that. So they're all coming together in this one area, which just, it's wild enough just saying it out loud and not ever reading this. Like, I'm like, I kind of want to read how this all went together. So
it feels like it was the crossover that was somebody's dream to make happen, but ended up being like, just throw some of this in there and add this. Oh yeah, this guy be there. Yeah, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah, they're probably like stipulations like, yeah, you can do a crossover, but you can't use any A tier villains. You have to use these villains. We're giving you Spider-Man. That's good enough, right? So Spider-Man, Howard, and Savage Dragon and Melf, they all show up at this place, and something goes along the lines where this little elf with a gun creates a whole bunch of clones of Howard the Duck, and it's just filling up the warehouse.
And we forgot the important part too. At this point, it was Destroyer Duck.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Because it was switched off that he had to settle a lawsuit with Marvel because he made Destroyer Duck that was used off Howard the Duck, made his own little line, all these spinoffs. Then Marvel came back, no, that is literally Howard the Duck. We own the rights to that. You can't use that other places, and they had a whole bunch of litigation.
Yeah, this is why we work together, because you have that computer right in front of you. It's Destroyer Duck. That's who I was trying to remember earlier.
Cool.
So Destroyer Duck. Destroyer Duck, Savage Dragon show up at the warehouse. Spider-Man, Howard the Duck show up at the warehouse. The elf creates a whole bunch of clones of Howard the Duck. In all the chaos, Spider-Man grabs Howard the Duck, goes back to their universe. Savage Dragon, Destroyer Duck grab the real Howard the Duck, dun, 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 and take them back to their universe. Spider-Man grabbed a clone. So from that point on, anytime Howard the Duck shows up in a Marvel comic, it's not the real Howard. It's as the video guy put it, a soulless clone.
Mm-hmm.
So when they brought Howard back to Image, they had him go into quote-unquote witness protection and had him dye his feathers and everything like that, which he kind of turned out to be more Daffy Duck looking from the image that I saw. So I'm sure that was a whole nother thing, but isn't that wild?
And I think the whole thing, this entire story is funny because it was done as tongue-in-cheek jokes. It was done as ways to skirt around litigation and try and give an up years to somebody else for who owns rights to what. And it kind of became the precursor for the entire Marvel multiverse, didn't it?
Yep.
Like since that point, we talked about this. The guy says, "Oh, they never do that." But now with the advent of the multiverse and everything that's gone on in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the last decade, you're like, "Oh yeah, different universe, Howard." That makes total sense. That's not even in left field right now. That's like it's like a practice play.
When I think this all happened in the 90s, that crossover event happened in the 90s, and then I think Marvel kind of denounced, like, oh, that's not canon type of thing. We have the real Howard, but I mean, if you look at it pen to paper, they don't.
Yeah,
they don't have the real.
It's
and like
in canon, it's the clone duck,
right? And so that just makes me think, like, I kind of want to see a movie about this. Like, I think, we've talked about this briefly before with the stuff between Stan Lee and Kirby and all that jazz, where there's been like some behind the scenes backstabbing and stuff like that honestly sound more compelling than another comic book movie at this point. Like, take a break, make sure the CGI is good, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, but give us like a behind the scenes, how they came to be type of thing.
Maybe somebody could create a movie like that where they do a documentary style movie about this whole thing, like a behind the scenes, or one of those behind the music style movies, but then have somebody animate it like the characters were really the people they're talking about in it and the animators. I feel like that could be very entertaining.
It wouldn't work as a documentary, though. It would have to be a documentary.
And the fact that it comes back to so many different things too is that Howard the Duck is just so ridiculous that almost everywhere he shows up, it just makes you either laugh or do a double take, like what's happening? Why is there a talking duck?
Yeah, why is there a duck drinking a martini talking to a dog? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Why is there a duck in glass? Yeah, I think with that, do you think there could be a standalone Howard the Duck movie that would work
in the MCU?
Yeah,
I don't think so. Part of me really wishes there could be, but it's just oddball enough that I don't think it would necessarily work for a full movie and have enough content to make it worthwhile. Because half of Howard's existence is just cameos. You look at some of the stuff that he's been in for it. I mean, he's been in Wolverine the X-Men. He's got the Ducky Dozen. He's in the Spider-Man back in Quack. He was in Fear Itself. He was in Marvel Zombies 5. Made an appearance in Secret Invasion. Appearance in Civil War. Appearance in Heroes Reborn. He's like, so much about him as far as the average comic reader goes is a sideshow cameo.
Right.
And when you go through, like, you speak about his origin story, when you say it out loud, you feel kind of ridiculous. You get halfway through, you're like, man, I sound like a crazy person right now. Like,
so there's this duck, okay? He's from Duck World. Well, do you think it would work better? Because when you were talking, I was sitting there thinking, I was like, maybe, you know how like Disney Plus has the Marvel shows like Agatha All Along and everything like that. What if they did kind of a mini series with it where he was jumping through different timelines or different universes and just causing a muck there, or whatever. Maybe that would work a little bit better.
Possibly.
I don't know. It's also weird just to see a quote unquote human sized duck. it's a little
unnerving.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at the Howard the Duck movie, right? And again, I haven't seen it since I was probably 12, maybe, I don't know. But you look at images still now of when he is laying in bed, post coitus and whatever, and smoking a cigarette, and you're like, what? Did I really watch that? Was that real?
The grievy part too is because he was designed like a Muppet, so he's one step up from like a Chuck E. Cheese band member. So it's also got some weird connotations. You're like, oh man, like just made this weird duck band. Wait, not duck band. Duck band's a different crazy weird duck. Another one without pants, though. And I did find out that the Disney lawsuit was an actual thing. It was around 1977. Disney threatened legal action due to his resemblance, and they had some anti-nudity things to agree that he'd always wear pants so that it wouldn't be confused with Donald. That was a legit story. It wasn't something I just made up.
Anti-nudity?
Well, they're
What? They're making him wear pants, but they're like, this is anti-nudity, but their duck is running around pantsless.
They redesigned the character by putting it in the script for Howard the Duck that he was the target of anti-nudity protests and had to wear pants when doing business as Wally Sidney. So they kind of wrote it into the story of why he wears pants, is the fact that people were getting on him for being nude in public. So that was kind of making it canon of why he has to wear pants instead of just folding to the Mouse House's rules. Once again, just some way to be like, all right, we're going to go by your rules, but we're going to make fun of you for it relentlessly and make it a big deal.
Yeah, I don't think you could ever take Howard the Duck seriously. There's so much shenanigans behind just the creating the character, the stories itself, and then just what we just talked about, the heist. Like, it's just plus I love that they call it a heist because it is kind of an elaborate thing to create this crossover event just to get a character back, and how they did it. Brilliant too, by the way.
And you wonder if it was like one drunken night of debauchery where they thought this idea up, or whether this was somebody that was planning and putting this together for months on end. Like, all right, I just got to have all these pieces to fall into perfect place, and this domino, and this domino, this domino, and Savage Dragon seals the deal. Howard will be mine again.
I would like to think it's probably more of like they're drinking, trying to think of a crossover, and you know what I really want? I want my duck back. That's what I want. Let's get my duck back. And then they came up with a weird way that worked. And forever now, Howard's not canon.
Howard's also been in the DC universe.
Really?
I didn't realize that.
Well,
Howard the Duck and DC Comics creator made a Lobo the Duck from Amalgam Comics. So apparently there was an issue where they had a Howard the Duck crossed with Lobo and had a character based off of that idea.
Lobo's the bounty hunter, right?
Yep. It still makes funny of thinking of Howard the Duck too in the comic stories for it. He was like very noir based. He was like a 20s and 30s gumshoe detective kind of idea was
right,
kind of his character was based off of, and you just imagine anything about a duck fitting that kind of personality. Like it's absurd in the best of ways.
See, maybe that would be the work for the spin-off or for the series then, if they did like a 6-episode miniseries and he's going through different universes trying to solve a crime.
Maybe that could work out, because then you could solve the cameo, because you could have different people in each episode that just make little appearances that make sense, but then his little overarching story is actually crawling through these different cameos for an actual semblance of a plot.
Yeah.
I like where this is going.
All right. Somebody get our lawyers in touch with Disney. And we got an idea for you?
Do you know who voiced Howard the Duck in his Guardians of the Galaxy cameo?
That was Seth Green, right?
It was Seth Green.
I don't remember the original one, but
the original
I kind of hear the voice. Yeah.
Let's see.
You know what I think what made the movie so unnerving that I look at images of it, it's the eyes.
Yeah, it's big, huge, and they moves unnaturally slow, and when they blink, it's like, what a chunk? What a chunk?
Yeah. Well, didn't he have like human eyes at one point too? I just there's something with the eyes that just, yeah.
Did you say demon eyes?
Human.
Oh, human. Yeah, they're very human eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, everything about him is humanoid except for the duck bills and the feathers. He's got fingers, he's got toes, he's got forward-facing eyes. Like, it's... I'm pretty sure he has teeth, too, doesn't he?
Ugh.
I'm afraid to look now.
Okay,
so I'm start searching Howard the Duck teeth, I'm going to find something in it I don't want to find. But yeah, the heist of Howard the Duck, and it got me thinking about all the different kinds of things of the amount of animated ducks that have been a big part of pop culture is almost unnerving. Like, I started just searching for animated ducks, and there's a whole list of fictional ducks on Wikipedia. There's like 60 or 70 of them, and then you start going to the list, you're like, oh, I know a lot of these.
Yeah, like Duck Dodgers, Darkwing Duck, the actual Mighty Ducks cartoon that had the actual ducks.
Mm-hmm. And if you look at like the Donald Duck family, the number of named ducks in the Donald Duck universe, I didn't even know half of those existed. I knew there was Scrooge and Donald and Daisy and Huey, Dewey, Louie. Outside of that, I thought the rest of that was it. But there's hundreds and hundreds of ducks they've all got built into that thing.
The duck family is huge.
And you did mention Darkwing, which is a good one. Let's see, Huey, Dewey, Louie. I lost.
I mean,
my
and
spot
you mentioned Duckman too. I mean, there's
Duckman.
There's a lot of ducks.
I feel like Duckman was an underrated cartoon for its time.
Yeah.
And wasn't it the guy that played George Costanza? Wasn't he the voice for Duckman?
I don't remember. Dude, it has been so long since I've seen that.
I have to look that up. Yeah, Jason Alexander was the voice of Duckman.
Wow. All right, so I'm going to be adding some stuff to my watch list again, and let's give Howard the Duck another try, and then we'll watch Duckman because that was a good series. I always loved Darkwing Duck; that was great.
Let's get dangerous.
Yep, exactly.
And I guess you could expand to the birds and not just ducks too, because then you got like Launchpad. He was a pelican?
Yes, he was, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm. And some of my friends have some ducks in the backyard, and ducks are just awkward creatures. But you make them talk and give them personalities, and all of a sudden they're more entertaining than they should be.
I think somebody was definitely on some quack when they thought them up. Oh!
Ding, 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 ding.
On that note.
Yeah, so hopefully you might have learned a little something about the Howard the Duck heist, the history of Howard the Duck, and the pure ridiculousness for somebody coming up with a character of a talking duck detective that ended up being in a different universe, got fired from a comic book company, and then created another duck that looked just like him, got into legal trouble for that, and then created a massive crossover story involving 3 or 4 different comic book companies and comic book crossover characters to create one storyline that was able to bring that duck back into the fold, the flock, if you will, of the original writer, and still give Marvel the Howard the Duck they have that isn't technically the real Howard the Duck.
And in market right now, In the year of our Lord Howard the Duck of 2024, October, we came up with the idea for the miniseries. So if Disney does one, we have ammunition to go back to them and go, that was our idea.
Yes. Give us a cut or let me be in it. I can be Howard the Duck's sidekick, right?
Do you think it would work better live action or animated?
I feel like it'd be better animated, but, Hollywood, they'll do it live action.
Yeah,
or they'll do a half-assed animated version and then follow up with a live-action version that's even half of that.
Or what if they did like a Who Framed Roger Rabbit type of thing, where they're going to have to CGI him. I mean, let's not have another puppet duck out there.
Well, I was going to say that the Howard the Duck movie, I feel like if they would have done it more like Cool Worlds, it would have done better. But they couldn't have that technology to do that very well at that time. But because the Brad Pitt and the cartoon character Cool World, that kind of style and that kind of animation and dark comedy instead of just the live action Muppets, I think could have gone real well with Mr. Howard the Duck.
Either way, no matter how Disney does it, if they pull out a Howard the Duck series, you're welcome, Disney.
Yeah,
I will let you know my bank account.
But let us know. Go to the comments. Who is your favorite fictional duck? Because that's a good conversation point, right? You can argue with your friends. Point. Who's your favorite fictional duck? Say that 5 times fast, too. And if you get a chance, go watch Howard the Duck. See if it holds up. I'm going to have to watch it this weekend now to see if it holds up at all in my mind. But it'll be, if nothing else, a good shot of nostalgia there.
Yeah. And one of those ones where you're watching, you're like, I liked this when I was a kid.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll put in parentheses, air quotes. There we go.
Back in our day, we didn't have a whole platform to choose different shows from. We had what we had.
Yeah, it was Howard the Duck or late night infomercials. So, well, it's been a ducking good time, and
oh my God,
yeah, we'll talk to you next time, huh?
This has been the Get Geekish Podcast. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, share, and hit those notifications. We'll talk to you at the next episode. But until then, enjoy your passions. Go out and get geekish about something.
Quack, quack.
All right. You want to do a little teaser for it real quick, too? Because I feel like that the duck conversation we just had, we could pull something real quick out of that for a TikTok-y type thing.
Yeah. Where we record a new thing? Like on Audition, or you just want to pull it from the video? What do you want to do?
Let's do Audition if we can, because your audio in Zoom is pretty trashy.
Okay. Or stuck. The good news is one of my coworkers listens to us,
Uh-huh.
and he's like, this made me kind of feel like we had like a made it moment. He's like, yeah, man, I enjoy listening to y'all. I'm like, you actually enjoy this? Yeah. I mean, I find myself like, when you guys are like, oh, what's that name? I'm sitting here yelling the answers at you, even though you guys can't hear me. And I'm like, you've made it.
Somebody's listening. And we're up over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube now.
Hell yeah. Those moments where we're like, what's that guy's name? Whatever. And then we move on. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm sitting here. And he's like, yeah, the 30 to 40 minutes that you guys do is perfect. It's not
awesome.
too long. It doesn't drag out. So
yeah, that's what I was saying. If it starts getting any longer than 30, 40 minutes, I'm like, no, I just see that number. I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
I don't got that much time on my hands.
How much time have we got? Let's see. Let me open up a new waveform here. All right. Let me know. I am rolling on my end.
Did you know that Howard the Duck has a sordid past, and the real Howard the Duck isn't even a Marvel character?
Huh?
Yeah, there's a whole heist about Howard the Duck we're talking about in this week's podcast. But the big question is, who's your favorite fictional duck of all time?
Wing for me.
I figure duck puns. I'm just Ducky. Thanks for asking. Podcast really quacked me up.
Yeah.
Check out this week's podcast. We're just winging it. Don't get your feathers ruffled, buddy. It is all it's quacked up to be and more.
But he's got to foot the bill.
Yes, duck puns and more. This week's podcast, Get Geekish, we're talking about Howard the Duck and the heist. What was it? The Howard the Duck heist that involved his origin story into the Marvel Universe. I like that. Sweet. I'll save that. I hope we get all this thing down. And I think you're right. Shooting for every 2 weeks is probably a good plan for right now because life's crazy.
Well, I think too that gives as weird as it sounds, that gives our podcast time to marinate, right? And then it'll kind of make people, since we are starting to get some subscribers, it'll make people kind of like check in with it. Oh, like what have they done? Type of thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get things so there's just constant content because that's everything I've noticed on YouTube. If you need to have some content going up, it doesn't have to be Hollywood quality stuff all the time, but you just got to have things there to keep it relevant, or else they just don't show it to anybody else. Fuckers.
I'm going to make sure that this is absolutely uploaded. I uploaded it last time, and then I just left. My computer went to sleep, and it didn't sleep it. So. Yeah, I mean, I think that way too. Like every 2 weeks gives us time to kind of think about what we want to do.
Because even this come with idea of the Howard the Duck with just that watching the video or spending 10 minutes to do a little like beforehand thought, then it makes it so much nicer instead of what are we going to talk about? What are we going to talk about? It's like, oh yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Don't
How did
forget.
Annabelle do it?
What's that?
How did Annabelle do it?
She actually did really good at it.
Did you get it?
A little bit, yeah, but the way they did it was pretty darn good. Like the one at Scream Acres, it's 10 times the size it used to be back when we were doing events out there at the radio station.
Is this the one out in Longmont or not Longmont?
LaSalle.
LaSalle, yeah.
Yeah. So the haunted portion of it, they have the whole other corn maze and all the other stuff that goes along with it. But the part of it where you wait in line to get in there for it, they got a full like amphitheater area set up. So they had fire spinners and music playing and all their clowns walking around and doing stuff. So even when you're waiting in line for a while, it just feels like you're still part of it. And when you go through the haunted place, you go through the corn maze, but it's not a maze. It's done like a haunted house. You're walking through the cornfields, and there's a few spots where it looks like you have to choose in a maze, but you end up at the same spot. You know, you go left around the circle or right around the circle at a few points. But then every a couple corners you go around, then you go through an abandoned trailer that has a bunch of stuff inside it. Then you get through that, and you go to the side, and you go through a weird setup of like a tunnel with a bunch of TV